Hello, I am Gauche. The following video clips are used legally under fair use for the purpose of commentary and criticism. Let us talk about Laci Green. Specifically, I want to talk about her work with MTV in a series of YouTube videos titled MTV Braless and their recent video about Disney's Zootopia. However, seeing as I do not have a brand deal with Disney and I do not want to step on Mickey's toes, I will be using fan art in lieu of any real footage for reference, all of which will be linked in the description. First, let us look at Laci's title. Is Zootopia an intersectional feminist utopia? The answer, obviously, is no. Intersectional feminism is a movement in reaction to compounding prejudice faced by women who are also members of other marginalized groups, such as racial minorities. If Zootopia is indeed a utopia, which is by definition a place where everything is perfect, then it would not require intersectional feminism, or any activism groups at all, because everything would already be perfect. This argument, however, does not matter much because like many of these manipulative channels on YouTube, the question posed in the title is never posed or alluded to in the actual video.
I went to see Zootopia and halfway through I'm like, oh my god, this movie is so intersectionally feminist and I wasn't even expecting it. I love it when that happens.
Okay, since this is going to come up a lot throughout this video, I would like to briefly point back to a recent video of mine, wherein I examined intersectional feminism as an idea. And I came to the conclusion that since both women and racial minorities are met with large social, financial, scholarly, and work-related benefits in modern society, people that fall into both of these groups are likely to be privileged rather than oppressed. Also, Zootopia doesn't really deal with intersectionality at all, because no characters in the movie are ever discriminated against for any reason other than their species. At no point is any character being oppressed for being a sly, mischievous fox and also for having a vagina. There are allegories involving sex and race, but since they are all linked to species, not gender, they can never intersect.
How is Zootopia feminist? So many ways!
Because, of course, Laci Green is a feminist, and in the mind of a feminist, anything progressive, positive, or generally good is feminism.
Let's talk about it, and just a heads up, there will be some spoilers.
This goes even more so for my video. Spoilers are ahead, and I highly recommend watching the movie first if you care, because a large portion of the plot revolves around a mystery. Continue watching at your own risk.
In the beginning of Zootopia, we get a strong message about inclusion.
I will assume by at the beginning of the film, she means during the segment where Judy Hopps is a child. I do not consider this part of the film to be about inclusion. The first scene, which involves young Judy putting on a school performance in which the children say what they want to be when they grow up, is about having big dreams and trying to do things even when they seem impossible. The following scene is about bullying, prejudice, the social pressures associated with the animal's species, and how brain can overcome brawn. No one is being included or excluded. The part of the movie where Nick Wilde flashes back to his childhood could be about inclusion because it's the only part where anyone is intentionally excluded. Nick wants to be a junior ranger scout, but the other scouts muzzle him as a way to haze him out of the troop because he is the only predator. You could also argue that once Judy makes it to Zootopia, she might feel excluded in the police department, but she isn't really. She's underappreciated but never excluded. Also, neither of these scenes are at the beginning of the film.
In the film, we follow Judy, a small female bunny with a dream of being a police officer. But every step of the way, others doubt her because she's small. And it's heavily implied because she's a girl.
No, there is a very large difference between the fact that Judy being a bunny is a metaphor for being female and the idea that it is implied that the actual character in the film is being discriminated against because she is a girl. We know that her parents are not instilling gender roles into her head because her parents both work in the same occupation as carrot farmers. They just don't want her to be a cop because she is a bunny. And we know that Judy doesn't face any gender prejudice at the police academy because her drill sergeant is a female polar bear. And we know that Police Chief Bogo does not assign Judy parking duty because she is a female, because in the very same scene we see a female elephant being treated just like all of the other officers. Judy only faces prejudice because of her species. She is a cute, small species, which may be a metaphor for being a woman, but the character, Judy, faces no adversity due to her sex. Also, while the film makes several nods to the idea that bunny equals human female, there are several points in the movie where that isn't the case. For instance, there is a scene in which Judy explains to Benjamin Clawhauser that cute is their word, and while it is okay for bunnies to say it to one another, it isn't okay for other animals to call bunnies cute. This is very clearly a nod specifically to black people and the N-word, because not only is cute a demeaning slur, it is also used casually among bunnies.
The message is pretty explicit. Even if your dream job is something traditionally male, you can do it too, ladies.
That is one of the many takeaways from this movie, but it is not even close to the most important one. Women have been police officers for decades, and while they may still face prejudice in that field, it is still normal to see female cops in the real world. Judy is the very first bunny to ever join the Zootopia Police Department.
And just like being a huge elephant has its advantages in the academy, so does being a nimble bunny. Everyone has something that they can bring to the table.
Kind of. But while the movie does show many ways in which Judy uses her bunny abilities to perform tasks, it also goes out of its way to show that Judy is hugely disadvantaged. Her skills are not equal but different. She is objectively less able to be a cop because of her small stature, and most of her rabbit skills are put to use just doing the things that everyone around her can already do. What makes Judy capable is her mind. She wants to be a cop, and she will do anything to make that dream come true. She uses her intelligence and tenacity to get what she wants. The moral of the movie isn't bunnies can do anything an elephant can, species is a social construct. The moral is that even though a bunny is disadvantaged physically, if he or she really tries, he or she can accomplish anything within reason.
As the film progresses, though, things get considerably darker and more complex. When a handful of otherwise peaceful predators in Zootopia go savage for seemingly no reason, social relationships between the predators and prey become very tense. Fear causes the animals to act irrationally, and violence breaks out.
The way you present this is misleading. I have seen this film 2 times and researched it on the internet, and from what I can remember, violence does not break out as a result of tension between predator and prey. The only violence that occurs in the movie is as a direct result of the animals going savage, which is the result of a drug. The only exceptions to this are when Gideon Gray scratches Judy as a child, the implied and threatened violence of Mr. Big and the polar bears in the parody of Italian organized crime, and the attempts to stop Judy and Nick at the end of the movie when they uncover the secret to why everyone is going savage. At no point do predator and prey get violent against one another due to racial tension. All of the problems that happen are social ones.
We learn that the predators are 10% of the population. The filmmakers definitely want us to know this is a metaphor for a minority group.
Yes, but the film is careful not to draw any direct parallels to any particular racial groups when it comes to predators. It is a metaphor for race discrimination in general. You can understand why they might want to avoid making a metaphor in which black people are lions, tigers, and bears, and white people are small, innocent herbivores.
And there are a couple takeaways here. One is that an us versus them mentality divides and hurts us all, but the power imbalance makes it particularly dangerous for minorities.
Wrong. In the movie, the power isn't in the hands of the majority group. The minority group is objectively much more powerful. In fact, throughout most of the movie, the mayor of Zootopia is a lion, and Assistant Mayor Bellwether was brought in to garner more votes from prey citizens. She is the token woman, or race member if you prefer, because again, all of the metaphors in this movie, either sex or race, fall upon the species of the character, so they cannot intersect. And when Mayor Lionheart is thrown out of office, it is due to corruption, not due to him being a predator. While the power does fall into the hands of Assistant Mayor Bellwether after Lionheart's arrest, this does not result in any sort of prey supremacy in society, and she doesn't use her political power to oppress predators. She just wanted to be in the position of power, and she was tired of being mistreated by Mayor Lionheart. All of the oppression of predators is committed by individuals, and while one of those individuals is a powerful one, she doesn't use her position to do it. She uses drugs. And while I did just realize the possibility of a crack metaphor as I was writing this,
just sprinkle some crack on them, let's get out of here.
The movie never uses the word drugs. The drug in question is night howler, a toxic flower which causes animals to go savage until they receive some sort of antidote. And Mayor Bellwether is the one who conspires to infect only predators to cause fear and panic in the prey community. The problem with this metaphoric analysis is that when Laci tries to get more and more specific, the metaphor falls apart. She is attempting to assert that predators are a systematically oppressed group, but this doesn't make sense because the movie establishes that predators were the ones in the position of power before evolution made all of the animals civilized. They ate prey. You cannot get much more powerful than that. And the movie never alludes to a period in Zootopian history where predators were enslaved by the majority group. In Zootopia, species is an allegory for race, but the parallels are less consistent the deeper you go. Sometimes bunnies are girls, and sometimes bunnies are black people, and sometimes predators are black people, and sometimes foxes are general minorities through the eyes of rural carrot-farming white bunnies. And sometimes prey are marginalized groups which require affirmative action for them to reach their position, such as the one Lionheart enacted to get Judy into the ZPD. And sometimes predators are the oppressed, and sometimes predators are the oppressors. This movie is not a one-to-one analogy for anything.
Another message is that well-intentioned people, or bunnies, sometimes say damaging things. In Judy's address to the press, she unintentionally fuels the tensions by claiming that the savagery might be biological. And this is a really interesting parallel to racism. A common argument against the existence of racism is that Black Americans are biologically inferior.
I concede this one to Laci. I think that it is exactly what this section of the movie is about. The prey have false notions that predators are prone to be savage due to their heritage, but this is revealed to be untrue. The savage outbreaks are being orchestrated by Mayor Bellwether herself, and she is using this to fuel a fear in society that already existed, as demonstrated by Judy's parents and their prejudice towards foxes.
They're troublemakers, lazy, violent, the list goes on and on.
That was a weird attribute to cite. This movie didn't say anything about predators being lazy.
But the reality is that the circumstances of Black Americans are very different than white Americans because of hundreds of years of white supremacy. The circumstances of the poor are very different from the rich. And it's easy to dismiss the problems facing marginalized groups as a result of their laziness or natural inferiority, but in reality, there are other more complex causes.
I find it interesting that Laci uses the word complex here, because she doesn't seem to see this issue as complex at all. She thinks that all negativity surrounding minority race groups is due to systemic oppression, which is very simple, but I agree with her that it is more complex than that. And some of these complexities are very uncomfortable to talk about because some of them involve oppressed groups being wrong. And that isn't something that intersectional feminists are willing to accept.
In Zootopia, the real cause of the problem is that predators are being unfairly targeted without anyone seeing it. In the USA, it's that the poor and people of color are unfairly targeted by systemic forces, without anyone seeing it.
If Disney had wanted to make a movie about systemic oppression, they could have just done that. They could have very simply added a section to the movie wherein, in order to achieve the civilized society they desired, the prey enslaved the predators until they evolved and were no longer savage. They could have depicted a Zootopia in which predators are only recently being treated as anything but second-class citizens. But that isn't what happens because this movie is about individuals and the power of individual strength and not making assumptions about people. Consider this my gauche master thesis on the world of Zootopia. Every time a character in the movie makes a broad assumption about a group of animals, negative or positive, they are shown to be wrong. The entire point of this movie is that everyone is an individual, and that you can't necessarily glean anything about someone based on their categorical qualifiers. And just like you should not do this in terms of negative prejudice, you also should not do this in terms of oppression or privilege. Saying that white people are the oppressors and black people are the oppressed ignores all of the rich, wealthy, successful black people and poor, downtrodden, discriminated against white people. And the same goes for assumptions about men and women. Statistics do not affect the individual, and probability does not influence individual behaviors.
Zootopia offers a lesson about authority as well. Are police and local government bad or good? Zootopia weighs in and says, well, kind of both. Some authorities are good and some are bad. But the bad eggs are a big problem because of the power they hold. They're protected by the system.
But in Zootopia, the bad egg, Mayor Bellwether, and her team of rams with whom she works are not protected by the system at all. She commits a crime, and the moment someone finds out, she is immediately arrested, just like any common criminal. Neither her political platform nor her species protect her from the penalties of breaking the law. This is very different from the real world, wherein cops are often protected for being cops. Politicians and Wall Street individuals are often not held accountable for the mistakes that they make. Women can both figuratively and literally get away with murder. Famous and rich people are legally advantaged, and the list goes on. The only singular reason that it was difficult to put Bellwether behind bars is because no one knew that she was behind it, and she appeared to be innocent, not because of her majority status, but because she is small, feeble, and disadvantaged. Throughout the movie, Bellwether repeatedly says, "Us little guys have to stick up for one another," or something to that effect. And is this not the way that feminism treats women?
If I was a parent, I'd take this as an awesome conversation starter.
I agree, but not in the bizarre feminist way that you plan on spinning this to your innocent children. Sorry, Laci Jr., the whole world is against you. But what would Judy Hopps do?
And you know what? Disney's been doing a lot of that lately. When I was a kid, we had movies like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast.
Are you criticizing Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid for not having a good enough message? The Little Mermaid is about how women shouldn't remain voiceless and that their fathers do not own them. And Beauty and the Beast climaxes in a scene where the female protagonist saves the strong male damsel in distress from being killed by the male embodiment of backwards ideas about women.
Listen, social justice, you can invade video games all you want, you can do whatever you want to comics, but don't touch my Disney.
Please, Laci, tell me all about the better messages we get nowadays.
Now we're getting movies like Frozen, about sisterhood, Inside Out, about emotions and mental health, Big Hero 6, about nonviolent solutions to conflicts. I mean, it's pretty rad.
I do not understand. Sisters exist, emotions exist, and nonviolent solutions exist. These are the messages that feminist Laci Green wants in her movies. Or are you saying that because Frozen doesn't end in a marriage, but instead a sisterly relationship, that it is feminist? And that because Inside Out portrays emotions as the things that control you instead of the other way around, that it is feminist? And you've contorted a movie about superheroes in the Marvel Comics universe to be about nonviolent solutions, and then shown a gun on the screen, because even though guns have nothing to do with the plot of Big Hero 6, it must be about your leftist opinions about gun rights in America.
That's not to say that there's not room for princesses and fairy tales, of course.
Of course? Is that in some way obvious to you? Because it certainly is not obvious to me after what you just implied about The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast.
But it's nice that Disney is using their platform to creatively explore the tough stuff too. That's my take, anyway.
Oh, and don't forget, these are just my opinions and feelings. Don't judge them. It's against the rules.
Let me know what you thought about Zootopia down below.
At the end of the day, Zootopia is about how fear controls people. Mayor Bellwether, a member of the prey, conspires to turn prey against predators based on their misconceptions and false prejudices. When Judy gives her inevitable, "You'll never get away with this, it will never work" line, which you can expect after the reveal of most mysteries, Bellwether replies, "Fear always works." These are powerful words, especially on Earth today. Whether it be Fox News broadcasting that President Obama is ruining your perfect country, or Anita Sarkeesian telling you that everything is sexist, fear always works. And I cannot think of a better analogy for this than the way that people like Laci Green spread the idea that women need to be afraid of the world. Because 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted on campus, and society is systemically oppressing you, and you live in a rape culture, and the only way that you can overcome all of this manufactured adversity is to assimilate to feminism. Fall in line with Mayor Bellwether. She will protect you from those scary predators. She will teach you what to do, and what to do is nothing. Just be oppressed, and know that you are oppressed, and let poor little oppressed Mayor Bellwether rise to the top of the food chain by lying to you, all while you clap for her, being so proud that she did it, because she's just a little lamb. And isn't it great that she was able to overcome all of that adversity she created to become rich and famous? More than anyone else, feminists are the ones that treat women as though they are weak. Not by their words, but by their actions. To end this video, I would like to make a public service announcement. Do not research Zootopia on the internet unless you are prepared to see suggestive images of anthropomorphic animals. Things get a little weird down this particular rabbit hole. I am Gauche. Goodbye.